Did you feel it this morning? Rumbling, rattling, and shaking across Green Country as well as several other states after a record-tying 5.6 magnitude earthquake is recorded near Pawnee. We have the very latest for you tonight. A Pawnee man was injured when the chimney inside of his home collapsed on top of him. He is expected to be okay. Tonight, the Oklahoma Department of Transportation inspected bridges within 30 miles of the epicenter. Workers tell us they did not find any damage. This afternoon, the Oklahoma Corporation Commission said they will be shutting down all disposal wells inside of the Arbuckle Formation. That's a 725 square mile area near Pawnee. Fox 23's team of reporters have been bringing you live coverage of the damage since that earthquake rumbled just after 7 o'clock this morning. Our team coverage starts right now with Fox 23's Hector Mejia. He's live tonight in Pawnee with a look at the damage done at one local grocery store. Hector?
The store manager tells me the damage they estimate is in the couple of thousands of dollars, and that includes the damaged ceiling tiles, merchandise, even some of those holiday weekend sales they had to turn away this morning. These registers, though, they're back to normal, open for business.
Didn't just shake for a minute. It started and went, underneath our chairs and clear down the rest of the house.
After that scare Saturday morning, Sandra Brown went straight to White's Food Liner, but found it closed.
Where am I going to get bread, milk, and orange juice?
Employees had no option but to turn customers away while they cleaned up every single aisle. Canned goods.
Oh, we got a mess in this one, don't we?
Baking supplies, even the sign broke loose.
The whole building was swaying. I could see the signs up top moving back and forth, and then stuff just started caving off the shelves. Lori Bento was setting up registers when that preliminary 5.6 earthquake shook up Pawnee. There was no thoughts. All I could do was just stand there and hold on to the counter. Besides
seeing and hearing merchandise fall off the shelves like the soda bottle here, the two employees here also saw and heard debris falling from the ceiling, like these ceiling tiles, this insulation, even some lettering that came off their wall.
I said, is this the end? Is Jesus coming back?
People who don't even work here showed up to pitch in, even though they had their own earthquake mess to clean up at home.
We're a community, and that's just what we do.
I was ready to cry, so I was glad my husband was there.
Brown says it's the most terrifying experience yet.
Yes, I would say so, as far as fear from being hurt by something.
In your entire life?
Yeah,
wow.
And I'm over 70, let me tell you.
Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin has declared a state of emergency after the earthquake that struck northeastern Oklahoma on Saturday. The earthquake tied a 2011 record as the strongest ever recorded in Oklahoma. It was felt as far away as Nebraska.
I jumped out of bed, got into the door frame, and the ground beneath us was just rolling like a tidal wave beneath your feet.
We've heard reports from folks of actually watching the ground wave come along and seeing those sort of effects. And so on a Mercalli intensity scale, we're up around 7 or 8, which is pretty intense shaking.
Geologists say new rock slides are helping them pinpoint the epicenter. The area's 180 state bridges were deemed safe. The minor to moderate damage includes chimneys and sandstone facing knocked off buildings and items knocked off store shelves.
A rumble, rattle, things like that, and then it just got louder and more violent as time went on.
37 wastewater disposal wells are being shut down in the quake region. An increase in earthquakes in Oklahoma has been linked to underground disposal of wastewater from oil and natural gas production.
Doctors in Victorian schools will be able to prescribe the contraceptive pill to students, including those as young as 12 from next year. Some fear parents will lose control over their children's health. Susie, should girls be able to access the pill without their parents' consent?
Well, better on the pill than pregnant, I say. And I think a lot of girls are forced to do this because boys they're having sex with won't wear condoms. And, a lot of parents would say they have a right to know. But a lot of these girls are having sex anyway, some of them behind their parents' back. And if they have access to the pill, then at least they're doing it safely. At least they're not going to end up pregnant and at school. I can understand that parents are somewhat worried about this, but girls can already go to their local GP GP or medical clinic and access the pill. And this is just making it easier for them.
Yeah, Chris at Parents Victoria says the reality is any young girl can walk into a GP without their parents' consent.
Yeah, and I would have thought most parents would be alarmed at that their child would do that. And we're talking about children here, let's not forget. It's different to be able to do that to a bulk billing doctor at the medical centre up the road. It's different to be able to do that at school. Like, why are we trying to sideline parents from their kids? They should be more involved in their kids' life, not less involved in their kids' life. Surely they need to give consent for their children to see a doctor at school. They send them to school. And at the end of the day, let's get parents involved in the problems as well as the highlights of their child's life.
But Chris, if they are involved in their kids' life, some people would argue their kids hopefully won't be sneaking off and getting on the pill without talking to their parents.
Yeah, but once again, you've got the avenue, if they really need to do something behind their parents' back, to go to a bulk billing doctor, but not at school. You send your child to school hoping that you know exactly what's going on.
But kids are having sex anyway. They may as well be doing it safely. And if they need to do this through the school avenue, then at least they're not going to end up pregnant. And as I said, a lot of girls are forced to do this because boys won't wear condoms. So let's not blame the girls. Let's look at the actions of the boys as well.
I blame the Premier, not the girls. I think the Premier needs to say to parents, you have a right to know what services we provide to your children.
I think it's just keeping kids safe.
12.
Though we know much more about Zika after the first 7 months, there's still an urgent need to continue sustained and global research, and this still does remain an emergency of international concern. But there was much discussion in the committee and actually with the Director General and with Peter about the fact that this extraordinary event is rapidly becoming, unfortunately, an ordinary event, and that Zika is beginning to spread or continuing to cause outbreaks in many countries around the world. Brazil reported, first off, that in fact during the Olympics, and since the Olympics have been over and as they're preparing for the Paralympics, there have been no athletes or any participants who have come to their attention with sickness that is Zika infection. And this is just good public health, good common public health. And until people understand that they have to assume responsibility for this on their own, protect themselves using repellents, long sleeves, long pants, making sure that they stay away from areas where they could be bit by mosquitoes if they're pregnant, this is the most important tool that we have, knowledge and information.
Hermine threatens several states with dangerous surf and flooding as millions now celebrate the Labor Day holiday along the northeast coast. The cyclone is slowly moving out to sea, but it is creating dangerous rip currents and storm surges. Tropical storm warnings, meanwhile, stretch from Delaware to Massachusetts.
The storm is already blamed for at least 2 deaths. It hammered several southern states on its way up the coast with strong winds and flooding. Jerika Duncan is in Seaside Heights, New Jersey, where a state of emergency is in place. Jerika, good morning.
Good morning. Seaside Heights, as you know, is painfully familiar with these powerful Atlantic storms. Right now, it is just very windy, but later today, because of these tidal surges, we could be talking about flooding. Along the Jersey Shore overnight, Hermine whipped up strong waves. At sea, the choppy waters rocked this Royal Caribbean cruise ship headed from New Jersey to Bermuda.
When you see the crew on a cruise ship starting to get dizzy and sick, then you know it's gotten pretty bad.
Derek Biederman was one of around 6,000 people on board the ship during the storm.
It got pretty wicked somewhere around maybe 1 o'clock a.m. The whole boat started rocking. People started getting sick. They started distributing vomit bags around, and it's been a pretty interesting adventure ever since.
The deadly storm made landfall last Friday as a Category 1 hurricane. It's already hammered coastal areas stretching from Florida to Virginia, knocking out power for hundreds of thousands and causing widespread damage. It's now targeting the eastern seaboard from Maryland to Massachusetts.
Well, there's no way I'd want to be out here after today. The next couple days, you want to be anywhere near this place.
Governor Chris Christie says Hermine won't come close to having the same destructive power as Superstorm Sandy in 2012. Still, he's urging people not to take any chances.
3 separate wildfires that may have been started deliberately have been raging along Spain's Costa Blanca since Sunday. The fires have been aggravated by soaring 42-degree temperatures and strong winds. Buildings in the town of Jabia and large areas of vegetation near the holiday destination of Benidorm were destroyed. Authorities almost had the first fire under control when the others began. We've been fighting this since 5 p.m, which is when the fire started. And when we thought that the fire was almost under control, the air support withdrew and we started to pack up. But then there was another flare-up. It's a pity because the original fire has now extended to where this flare-up is now. Though there are no reports of any serious injuries at the moment, 1,000 residents and tourists have been forced to flee, with 300 staying in emergency shelters. We haven't had serious health emergencies. We had to evacuate people who were walking on the street with their suitcases and fleeing from the wildfire. We've evacuated a lot of people and are still doing so, but as far as health-related emergencies go, we have only had 1 case of smoke inhalation requiring hospital attention and little else. The head of Valencia's emergency services, Jose Maria Angel, said that the fires were set deliberately on the hottest day of the year.
In some Pasco neighborhoods, mandatory evacuations are still in place this morning, but many people refuse to leave. ABC Action News anchor James Tully is live at the flooded Elfers community. And James, there are some dangerous currents right down the streets.
Dan, we're told currents strong enough to sweep people off their feet. And the fact that not everybody's getting out of here, it's a challenge for law enforcement. Take a look behind me. You can see some potentially dangerous situations. We're pointing our lights right in this mobile home park here, and you can see the backyard of this home is completely underwater. As a matter of fact, water almost up to the doorstep of these elevated homes here. Now, yesterday, Fish and Wildlife officers were patrolling this area. They were able to give us a closer look at the situation and how people that live right next to the Anclote River here have been impacted. Many, as we mentioned, forced out of their homes. Some left, some haven't. The only way in and out for many of them is by boat. Water chest deep in some places. We saw families struggling with their kids to get around and families swimming in the filthy, flooded streets. Officers, they say they can't control what people do, but want to be ready if anything happens. Now, there is some good news to pass along. As of yesterday, Bill Logan, our meteorologist, and Ivan has mentioned this as well, water levels crested and beginning to move down, but it's estimated it could be another week before people can get back into their homes.
A satirical cartoon depicting the victims of last week's earthquake in Italy as dishes of pasta has sparked a wave of anger in Italy. The drawing in the current issue of France's Charlie Hebdo magazine features the inhabitants of the village of Amatrice. The cartoon, which suggests poor construction standards contributed to the death toll, has sparked outrage and anger both in Italy and further afield. It's an offence, above all, to all those Italians who wrote Je suis, says the village mayor. Satire must stir a sentiment. I mean, to do a satire on a tragedy that's hit an entire nation, the whole world. I think it's really ugly. The earthquake in the central Apennines mountain range claimed nearly 300 lives, injured hundreds of people, and left thousands of residents homeless when their towns and villages were destroyed.
A moment of triumph for the AfD. Once they struggled for electoral support here, but now, with an anti-refugee and anti-Islam platform, they're winning votes.
Finally, a real opposition again in Schwerin, and in a year's time, hopefully in the Bundestag in Berlin. And maybe it is the beginning of the end of the chancellorship of Angela Merkel.
The AfD's success has come at the expense of the main parties. Angela Merkel's Christian Democrats were beaten into third place. A humiliation for her in her home state, where the ruling coalition mirrors the national coalition. Her party's lead candidate here was clear what the main issue had been.
The positive political developments that we have achieved here in the state didn't register in the slightest with the population. Instead, there was only one topic, and that topic was refugee policy, even though refugees don't play a real role here politically.
Despite the AfD's success, there is no chance they will enter government because no other party will work with them. The Social Democrats won the most votes and so will continue to form the senior partner in a coalition which will most likely be with the CDU again. Winning seats here means that AfD now has a presence in 2/3 of all Germany's state parliaments and is becoming a force to be reckoned with. The question is whether results like these will change the federal government's policies.
Turkish tanks roll across the border into Syria, opening a new line of attack against Islamic State. It's part of an operation called Euphrates Shield, which is Ankara's first full-scale incursion into Syria since the start of the 5-year-old civil war. This latest attack is being launched from the province of Kilis, which has been a frequent target of Islamic State rockets during the past year. The campaign coincides with the push by Turkish allies among the Syrian rebel forces, who have seized several villages to the east. Turkey hopes to push out IS militants and check the advance of Kurdish fighters in Syria, which are backed by the U.S. Ankara hopes to clear a 90-kilometer-wide corridor along its border, getting rid of the jihadists, while also protecting it from Kurdish militia.
Right now, the city of Wilton Manor is on edge as a man is accused of threatening a massacre larger than the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando. CBS 4's Hank Tester joins us live from Wilton Manors with more. Hank.
Well, the police were highly concerned, so was the community, and tonight we understand that the issue here has somewhat been resolved. Let's take a look. 5'9", 280 pounds with a beef against bar owners in Wilton Manors, spraying graffiti. That's 40-year-old Craig Allen Jungworth.
He's a big guy, and he's got a screw loose.
Jungworth put fear into Wilton Manors residents with a series of ranting posts on Facebook. It's the talk of the tight-knit community.
When I first read his post from yesterday, I had chills down my spine.
Here's a sample of the multiple posts. You blank are total patsies. None of you deserve to live. If you losers thought the Pulse nightclub shooting was bad, wait till you see what I'm planning for this Labor Day. The post is in reference to the Pulse nightclub massacre that went down in a gay gathering spot in Orlando.
Everyone knows that Wilton Manors is predominantly gay and lesbian. Okay, well, when he pushes the button called Pulse, okay, that takes the emotion and puts it through the roof.
Extra security for an AIDS Ends With Me event at the Wilton Manors Pride Center. Beefed up patrols throughout the weekend. Now, this news late Wednesday.
We know where he is, but I can't comment on where he is, but I can tell you emphatically he is not in the Tri-County area.
Sources say Jungworth, who reportedly is gay, is in the Orlando area. The FBI now involved. Potential charges: threatening harm over the internet.
A sigh of relief that at least he's not in the Tri-County area.
Through song and colorful costumes, these anti-Brexit protesters on the streets of London are making their message loud and clear. Britain should stay in the European Union. One protester says he's still hopeful, despite the country's recent vote to leave the EU.
If we can do anything to resist this, there are all sorts of channels for resisting it via, say, the House of Lords, constitutional challenges, legal challenges, even the EU itself, possibly a second vote, you never know.
British comedian Eddie Izzard says leaving the EU simply cannot happen.
We have to make the European Union work. We have to, otherwise the world will not make it. Those are the stakes.
But British Prime Minister Theresa May has said there's no going back, though she has yet to invoke Article 50 to formally begin the process of leaving the bloc. With the British Parliament set to return from summer recess, anti-Brexit marchers here and across the country are hoping to put a stop to it.
Dozens of people were injured and 20 more still feared trapped in a structure that collapsed in Tel Aviv. Police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld said that at least 30 people were injured. Another police update said officials had managed to speak to 2 of those trapped on their cell phones. Search and rescue teams from the Israeli military were called in to help dig out people stuck under the rubble of a parking garage that collapsed. Authorities said the structure that collapsed was the underground parking lot of an under-construction office block. We've been following this story throughout the morning and will continue to bring you any new information as it becomes available on air and online at WWLP.com.